This is the Deep Objection podcast for May 28th, 2020, episode 439. The regular crew is here. We're wearing different shirts of our interests. This is an ultimate shirt. You can't see it.
You're interested in Flagstaff.
Ultimate Flagstaff.
Just a really local guy.
Yeah, I just love Flagstaff. That's why I'm the editor. Dave, unsurprisingly, loves ASU. Shaun, unsurprisingly, loves Space Jam.
You know, it's interesting. No licensing from Michael Jordan on this shirt, though. It's only the Toon Squad.
Wow, he wouldn't license himself on that?
Yeah, I guess not. I mean, which he was on, and it would be kind of weird to have a photorealistic Michael Jordan on my shirt, but I can't help but notice that he's not here.
Like, how is it that a Toon Squad shirt gets made without Michael Jordan?
Is Babs there?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. You tell me.
Lola is who you're thinking
Lola,
of.
yeah.
Yeah, Babs is the kid. Who's that?
I don't see Lola either. There's Sylvester and
here's the best.
Devil.
The best.
Daffy
Duck.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's interesting? I've never made this connection before. The best ducks from Looney Tunes or Disney. No, I'm sorry. The best characters are ducks. They're the best ducks too, but the best characters are also ducks. In both. How does that happen? How is the duck always the best character?
Well, they're really ornery, and I think maybe you have a connection with them.
Well, it's it, but like it's not even like because Donald kind of has the gimmick like thing. Daffy is, well spoken.
He does the sucking suck.
Oh yeah, you know what? That's true.
Like you're despicable.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. But he's the best.
Speak through a bill.
The older I get, the more I think to make this into analysis of Space Jam, because we haven't done this before.
No.
I think the older I get, the better Daffy Duck is. Like when I was young, it was like Bill Murray and like weirdly enough, and like the kind of the Monstars because they're like really slapstick. And like when I watched it a couple of years ago again, Daffy like has all the best lines of the whole movie.
If you're judging this just on Space Jam, I agree with you. Daffy in general is kind of a dick sometimes.
Yeah, but it's great. I get it. He's always second fiddle to Bugs, who doesn't deserve it.
No, says Bugs is kind of a dick himself.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Is there anybody in the Looney Tunes universe who's not an asshole? Maybe Porky?
I was going to say, Porky's a sweetheart.
Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, both assholes.
Yeah, I like
Fudd,
Roadrunner.
Asshole. Tasmanian Devil, I guess not really that bad, but still kind of a jerk in that he just accidentally tears up things.
The Roadrunner, that's a good point.
Tweety's an asshole. Sylvester's an asshole.
He's like the hero, but he loves watching Wile E. Coyote fuck his life up.
Well, yeah, and he leads him into it. It's like he could run somewhere else and but he knows that it will end poorly. So he walks up and eats the birdseed just enough so the trap doesn't get set off.
Roadrunner knows he does not do the minimum required for survival. He goes above and beyond to ruin Wile E. Coyote. Yeah. And you can say maybe he deserves it, but
maybe. But the problem is after 4, 5, 6 decades, it starts to be like, okay, now you're just torturing this thing. You're clearly superior. It's never going to work, and now you're just hurting him more.
Well, and in fact, now I kind of root for Wile E. Coyote, finally.
Yeah, but that's like rooting for the worst team in the league year after year because you just know they're never going to win because he can't win, otherwise the show's over.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. But then with the show that never ends, I get fatigued from that too. So that's like Elmer Fudd. I'm like, Elmer, if you could just succeed once. It's over. I mean, it's over. Once is all it takes for Bugs. It's done.
It's the Washington Nationals.
Yeah.
Or Generals. Excuse me.
Yes.
Apparently, I'm just going to be tired today, so that's great. I've already got 2 mistakes in the first 3 minutes.
I mean, I clearly have enough energy for all of it. Oh, look at this. I'm going deep dive into Space Jam characters. We're 5 minutes in. Not even.
We just started. Space Jam character, though.
Wait, what?
You missed one of the important Space Jam
characters. No, I didn't.
It's not a Looney Tune.
Larry Bird.
Larry Bird. He's not white. He's clear.
Larry Bird has a couple of good lines among his 4 lines.
It's funny, though. It's funny now, again, going off of last week when Larry Bird was like, fuck you. Or I'm sorry, Michael Jordan was like, fuck you. And then they're in Space Jam together. And he's like, Michael, when he's in the golf hole. He was concerned. I felt the concern that Larry Bird had for Michael Jordan when he was...
I think he was more concerned about finishing the game.
Well, that could be true, too. Or maybe being implicated. I was on the golf course when Michael Jordan was abducted. That's a bad look.
You're not going to live that one down.
No, for a retired Larry Bird, that's a problem.
Fair.
Why isn't Magic Johnson in Space Jam?
I don't know. What was Magic Johnson doing in the mid-90s?
Commentating on NBC for the finals.
And he was maybe closer to Michael than Larry was.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't like he was playing. Or was he?
I mean, they even got Patrick Ewing in the movie.
It would have been fun if they had Isaiah Thomas's like teaming up with the monster, the Mountain Guy, or whatever the Dan DeVito character is.
Yeah. Oh, you could have had Patrick Ewing been a villain.
No, well, Isaiah Thomas would have been the better villain.
Yeah, oh, that's true. That's true, yeah.
Yeah, but he hated Isaiah Thomas so much he wouldn't even touch him with a 20-foot pole. Yeah, you're not allowed.
Yep, exactly.
Well, anyways, I've been watching The Last Dance, which I've been talking about a lot lately, and everything I've been talking about has been without actually having seen it. It is incredible. I love it. And I have two main takeaways. The first one, Dave, I think that I disagree with you on Michael Jordan so much because I am Michael Jordan.
Oh, boy.
Other than a small difference in skill and ability and athleticism and
dead fathers.
And yes, and height, strength, speed,
race.
I mean, sure, yeah, age. We're the same person essentially.
Mm-hmm.
No, true. I'm lit. So we're watching, and he's like, we. I have to tell you, Maisie's playing a game at my feet, and she keeps looking at me, and all of America can be watching me, and it's fine. And Maisie staring at me is throwing me off.
Just staring at him, too,
yeah,
not looking.
She's not even like smiling. Well, she is smiling, but that's it. She's not saying anything.
Glancing in direction of just dead stare.
I think she's drunk. Anyways,
bemused look.
So, their 1985 season, Dave. Have you watched the show?
The whole thing.
Okay, this is going to be less interesting for you, but for America, it's good. He is hurt, and they're talking about, well, let's just end the season. There's no reason for you to come back. We get a lottery pick, and he's like, no, I don't give a shit about a lottery pick. We are not playing to get a lottery pick. We're playing to win. And there's one way you play sports, and it's to win every time. And play as hard as you can every time. And we're cut from the same cloth, MJ and me. Me and Mike, as I call him.
So the problem...
I was giving you a second because I knew you had to gather for the rebuttal. And I want to give that to you.
So here's the problem with your thing. You're going to have your opinion swayed so hard by basically this suck-up job to Michael Jordan that this documentary is. Because that's what it is. The only reason he green-lighted it was to make himself look like a competitive winner, like a very competitive person who maybe went a little too far sometimes, and not the competitive asshole that he is that shunned so many people from his life.
Well, but here's the thing. I know that if this is just scratching the surface of that competitiveness where he's too much. Mm-hmm. But I love that. I totally respect that. Now, when people bring up him versus LeBron and they're like, you know what MJ did for the community? He sold shoes. Do you know what LeBron did for the community? Built schools. Yeah, no doubt LeBron is a way better person for sure. But as a competitor, as someone that I relate to, I play in pickup games and one of the reasons the three of us get along, do you want to know what it is? I feel like we all try hard on the court. And when your defense starts flagging, Dave, I call you out on it every time. And when we play with other people and they're not even close to our effort levels, I get really frustrated. I'm like, are we going to play? What are we going to do, guys? Do you want to go sit down? Would you just want to go sit on the bench? It might be beneficial, actually, if you do, and just leave us to play. Addition by subtraction, I think.
So the nice thing that you can do in life is turn that off when you leave the court. Jordan couldn't.
Okay, I mean, that's fair.
And when you see a clip of him playing a toss the quarter against the wall game with his security guard and getting legitimately pissed that he lost, like the $2 bet that he had, that's where it comes into issue.
I get a little bit like that with board games, but I think for the most part, I'm okay. I'm okay losing.
That's the thing. He's not. ever. And they don't show that very well because they don't really tap on him losing very much in that entire documentary.
Yeah, I've noticed that, like, so episode 1 was all MJ, which is, like, fine. I mean, he was the Bulls. Episode 2 was, like, Scotty, and I was like, oh, this is really cool, until it became MJ again about halfway through. We're going to use the story about Scottie Pippen to segue into why Jordan is so competitive.
So, spoiler, episode 3 is about Dennis Rodman until it's about Michael Jordan.
I'm sure, yeah.
Episode 4, Phil Jackson. Back to Jordan.
Exactly.
But it's great. I love it. I really do. I'm enjoying it. It's so well done, of course. Yeah, bias is going to come through. Absolutely. It's probably what they had to do in a way to get greenlit, but there are plenty of Jordan fans anyway. I mean, maybe they didn't even try. Maybe they just love Jordan and this was a love letter to him and the team. But
if they would have touched a little bit more on some of his issues, like they talk about his gambling issues, they talk about the teammates in practice, but like even Steve Kerr, and maybe this is a good sign of Jordan and how he is respected by people, but like Michael Jordan punched Steve Kerr in the face in practice, and Steve Kerr basically said, yeah, we're both competitors. He yelled at me, I got up in his face, he punched me, that was that.
Well, yeah, but like, and the way I hear it, they were getting chippy, mostly Jordan's fault. Mm-hmm. But then Steve Kerr was like, I'm a human, and eventually you're going to push me too far. So Kerr shoved Jordan. And then they got the punch. So the way I've heard this story before, Steve Kerr was minding his own business, just trying to be a nice guy, and all of a sudden gets shellacked in the face. So it wasn't quite that bad. But yes, Jordan looked worse in that situation by a lot. It wasn't even 50-50.
I actually like the version of the story where it's Steve Kerr and he's helping an old woman cross the street exactly. on his way to an orphanage to donate a large, oversized check. And Jordan just comes running across the street and cold cocks
like
him.
Jordan's like, you got to focus on practice!
For literally no reason whatsoever. Like, yeah, okay, Jordan might have gone a little bit too far on that one, yeah.
But it's
good.
Sorry, I'm just so into. So like the thing of if my foot had a 10% chance of I never play again, I would totally sit out. And I so respect the idea of like, well, yeah, but it's 90% that I get to keep doing what I love to do, and we have a chance to make the playoffs. And it didn't matter to him that the first round was against the all-time great Celtics. Like it's that winning attitude, and it builds a winning culture.
Mm-hmm. I did love that quote he says where the analogy that the owner made.
Yeah.
It's like, look, if you had a headache and I told you 9 pills could kill you and 9 pills would cure you and 1 pill would kill you, would you take it? Well, it depends how bad the fucking headache is.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so the reason I wanted to bring this up among just, my love letter, that's a nicer way of saying it to Jordan, because I do like him, was that attitude of building a winning culture. And I was listening to this podcast that Brightside did, where they kind of did this whole trial of Ryan McDonough, who's a GM from the 2010s, basically. Mm-hmm. And it's a cute thing that they do. They put a lot of time and attention into it, even though it's really hard because, like, how do you defend Ryan McDonough? I mean, like, really? But one of the things they said was like, did he destroy our culture? And I think it really brought it back to me when you have this attitude of fuck the draft picks or, resting up or whatever. Like, there's one way to play the sport, and you play to win. And I think that we lost that a lot in those years. When you take, and I'm sure we touched on it a lot and before, but I so agree with that. When you start, it's better to forego a draft pick and start getting that winning culture into all the players rather than we're losing on purpose, because what kind of message does that send? Either obviously or subconsciously.
Mm-hmm. And I will agree with that mentality. We tried the tanking. We tried the getting the top player. The problem, I guess, will come when there is a LeBron in the draft. You know what I mean? When there is that guy who could be the championship piece for a decade, and then you kind of almost have to have that mentality of like, if we just get that guy, we'll be fine. And that's what you're shooting for, which I don't know. I would prefer just let's play to win and get a solid team. And if we get far and maybe not over the hump, at least we have their good ride.
You have to. You have to, because we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone else has another example, please let me know. I'm only thinking of the Suns right now. Let's say we get the next LeBron. It's almost like when LeBron was with Cleveland the first time. Now he had no help, and there was a lot of problems with that. But like, so you've got LeBron, but your culture sucks, and you're a losing team, and you don't have the attitude to win. You can't figure it out. And like, let's say we got Luka, for example. Would he have thrived here? Maybe and maybe not, because our culture sucks so bad. We don't know how to win. We don't have the attitude. We haven't cultivated anything. And so we don't know how to build that winner, no matter what the talent is.
Well, it sucks because I think that process takes so long. And as I'm farther away from it, it is making me dislike Brian McDonough much more than it was before, because I think from 1968 through 2010, pretty much 2010, the Suns had a pretty winning culture. You know, they had the Colangelos, they had, we were constantly building, having a good place where people could come and enjoy coming and making smart draft picks, smart free agent signings, and building a team not with superstars until one like falls in our laps or we get lucky, like trading for Barkley or signing Steve Nash type of thing. And that's when we had our good run. So we always had a solid team. And then when we got that lucky piece, that one last piece, then we made a run at it. But now we don't have that at all. So I'm with you. Like, it takes a long time to have that consistent winning culture, and it's going to take a long time to build that back, it seems.
Teams were bending over backwards to win a 1/4 chance at the number 1 pick.
Mm-hmm.
The lottery's evolved over time, and that's not the way it is currently. It's basically been cut in half, where the worst teams in the league have like a 12.5% chance to get the number 1 pick. It's ruined sports culture. And that's not like an old man get off my lawn take at this point now that I'm 35. That's just... What used to be before Moneyball, which I think is responsible for the permeation throughout a lot of different sports of this asset utilization, which has its place and is a smart approach to some extent. But think about it this way. In the 90s, when you had two teams that were eliminated from playoff contention, fans would sometimes check out. You know, like, I don't need to watch this 4th-place team play this 5th-place team in September in baseball. Like, they're both not going to make the playoffs. They're 20 games out. But the players cared. Maybe not as much as a playoff team, but they were playing to win still almost all the time. Now that is not the case. Players, GMs, owners, organizationally, all of them kind of just shut down when the playoffs are beyond reach. And it's going to kill these leagues to some extent over time.
Well, and I think part of that is, especially in basketball, the shaming of not winning a championship. Like, we shame people so much if they don't win a championship. Like, Barkley people like Barkley because of his personality, but like, people almost shame Barkley for never having won a title when he was an amazing player. This whole mentality of like, championships is the only thing that matter. It hurts a lot because it's like, well, I'm not going to win the championship this year, so who cares? Like, there's not that, hey, we're trying to be a good team type of mentality almost.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't win the championship, you're terrible.
And, you know, you got to be proud of where you are. So like Devin Booker, if he looks back in his career, let's say he stays with the Suns. He won't if we keep doing this. Let's say he stays. His whole career, he's on a loser. If he looks back and says, you know, I never got to win anything, but I was part of a fun culture. We were doing it the right way. We had that chemistry. We had what me personally, Shaun Elters, likes in sports. It just never worked out. That's so much different than I spent half my career losing on purpose. Even when we were trying to win, we didn't know how. It was a toxic culture. I had no faith in the organization. That's so much different. And like, that's where he is now. Of course he is. It doesn't matter what he says. He maybe only now is starting to get some faith in the front office. After how many years has he been in the league? 5?
This is 6, coming into 6 now, yeah. I wonder if there's I think one game, the idea of like your last game of the season, you're playing against you're the second worst team and you're playing against the worst team. And if you lose that game, then you can have a better odds. Like, tanking one game is kind of like, okay, but like going into February saying like, all right, we're going to lose the rest of our games on purpose. That's when it starts to hurt. Like, the one game thing I can, like, when it's that close of a thing, then you can kind of understand it, I guess, is just in that maybe a small defense of tanking.
Well, and look, maybe I'm an idiot. Okay. Maybe. But when I'm losing and my team has given up, And I'm like, no, like the game's not over. We got to keep pushing. All right. And then let's say there's 5 minutes left. No, let's say there's 2 minutes left. We're down by 50. I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to say it's not over yet. We can, if we steal every inbounds pass and hit every three, but I'm going to say, you know what? Okay, we can't win this game. Don't check out. Let's run some plays. Let's work on something different. Let's keep playing the right way. Let's build so this doesn't happen next time. And like, you don't get that. You get like, well, it's, it's over.
I have no qualms with tanking in a 1-game scenario. 0.
Yeah, sure.
Particularly like Dave said, game 82 or whatever in your respective sport, where you have a clear outcome. If we lose this game, we have a better chance of the number 1 pick. We can't get anything by winning this game. So all you're going to risk is player injuries and then an outcome that does bad things for your franchise. In a 1-game scenario, cool. Like you said, though, when you're shutting down with 25 games left, you don't even know you're going to end up with the worst record. And then when you do, you don't know that you're going to end up with the worst pick. Remember, the Suns, just the previous season, won 19 games and picked 6th.
Yeah.
And then traded that pick.
You know what? That's why I won't even fully agree with the assessment of even for 1-game tanking. But like I'll say, okay, 1 game left, maybe don't play your stars because the getting injured factor. And that's hard for me, but I get it. Especially the 82 games, a long season, wear and tear starts to accumulate. 1 or 2 games, you rest them. But that bench that's in there, they better be playing hard. Because for them, that it could be their chance to prove themselves or to work on, get that game time experience. So it's hard for me.
Would the NBA do better now that the G League is becoming a bigger thing and like college people are starting to skip college? There's high schoolers that are starting to skip college to go to the G League. Would the idea of how baseball does September call-ups, would that be something that could help this kind of mentality? Is like if you bring up your young guys from the G League to play, I don't know if it works the same because, like Chris, you mentioned, a 4th place team playing a 5th place team in the end of September in baseball. They're still playing hard. A lot of them are because they're young guys from the minor leagues that are trying to make the team. And I wonder if that type of mentality would work in basketball.
I think it would help. I think the problem is the talent level and the disparity there is still such that maybe in a 1-game sample, a huge effort for some really driven, motivated G Leaguers is enough to take out LeBron. But, 95 times out of 100, no matter how hard they try, he's going to kick their ass. Yeah. I don't think it's a bad idea, especially because the depth of the league would help. It would help reduce some wear and tear. If they're not going to reduce the number of games in a season, that's one way to maybe help reduce some minutes loads for some players. I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't think it solves everything, but it's probably a step in the right direction.
Here's my radical take, Dave. And so I like that this is an opportunity because to some extent it almost comes off as like I'm bragging. I always want to win. That's like whatever. I am so radical. That's a good solution that you had. Another solution is the playoffs at the end of the season for like the bad teams. That might get them more excited.
I like that one a lot.
I like it. I don't want the solution to come externally though. I want these players to want to play and get better. And whatever reason they need to find to do that on their own, find it and do it. If it's bettering yourself or working on team dynamic or whatever, run experimental plays. That's fine.
Or getting a big paycheck.
You know what? Even that's fine. Whatever's going to work for them. But I guess the need to have external solutions to solve this problem, I don't like. I'm fine if it happens because it probably would work, but my hope would be that these players would do it on their own.
The problem, though, I think, is it's not just a player problem. It's a systemic issue with the way the league is set up that has created this scenario that's incentivized losing to the point where now, again, general managers and coaches and owners have also kind of been like, okay, losing kind of helps this. So even if their players were driven, if they get an order from management to shut a guy down for the rest of the year, a la Eric Bledsoe, that's not even a player solution that can be found.
Yeah, true.
So they have to find ways to do it externally, even if you can have a lot of growth from the players, right, who do carry the onus of it. But the lottery has created this situation now. Smoothing out this odds has helped already, I think. But you're always going to have a point where somebody's going to be incentivized to do something, whether that's a 4 seed in the NBA playoffs losing on purpose because they want to fall a spot to face a specific team, or players resting on the final day of the season just for the playoffs because it's better for the playoff team not to have somebody get hurt in the meaningless regular season finale.
Sure.
Or, losing. So you go from the 10th worst team to the 9th worst team because it improves your odds by 0.5%. there's no matter how much you flatten this or whatever, there's always going to be a system that has that. I think the league's job is just to try and make it as palatable for winning as possible.
I wonder if there's some kind of way to do a setup where like the best team, it's already unraveling as I'm thinking about it, but like the best team gets the best pick, but the way that the salaries work out, or even the hold on the salary, so not necessarily what the player is making because that's not fair, but what's on the books, so that like you can't have a team that just keeps stacking all the number one picks. If they want the number one pick, that's fine, but they might have to move another one of their pieces, and so you start to develop that parity without incentivizing the worst team. So the only incentive the bad teams have is to get better. And that sure sucks if you're the Suns and you're like, yeah, culture was part of it, but we were also just terrible. And how are we supposed to get better? I know, like, figure it out though, because losing on purpose isn't going to do it anymore.
There's a great solution I heard that could blow up in people's faces if someone gamed it properly. But there was one solution where basically like as soon as you are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, every win you win after that point in the season is greater odds for a draft pick. So it's kind of like a weird lottery where like if you're eliminated with 10 games left and then you win 5 games, you get like a certain like 5 chances back into the lottery. If you're eliminated with 1 game left, you win your last game, you have 1 game left. But if you're eliminated with 30 games left, and you only win 5 games, well, you only have 5 like spots at the lottery type of thing. So what it is like if you're just a really bad team, you have a lot of more time to try to get these lottery pit balls basically. If you're a really good team and you just miss out, it's kind of like you were the 14th seed and have your 0.1% chance, but it basically still gives you an incentive to win even after you're mathematically eliminated.
People would game it for sure, but I would argue again, I really do believe that if you have the culture where you're going to lose on purpose to put yourself in this position, you're not really going to have what it takes to make a huge push anyway.
Which is one of the nice things about it. I would like something like that. I would like a system that did a few different factors. I'm a big fan of auction drafts and fantasy, and while you can't necessarily take that across to the real league, you could make it such that maybe a small factor is people being able to leverage cap space for higher draft picks. One of the things this does is it sort of helps you protect against the really, really stacked teams being able to participate in that process. Like, how are the Warriors ever going to have the funding to do that in their present incarnation? They can't. Right. They're over the luxury tax because they have Steph on a $40 million a year contract. Clay is making $32 million a year. Draymond's making like $28 million a year. Wiggins is making like $1 million per game, which is stupid. But, so they can't do anything unless they want to get rid of actual assets to chase the possibility of draft picks, which almost always, like 75% of the time, don't pan out. So maybe that's an incentive for teams that have less payroll because they have less tied up in existing stars to then have a route to getting better stars. Also helps the small markets to some extent. The biggest issue with my plan is the players would never go for it because then it threatens to reduce player salaries because owners go, well, we could pay you $35 million a year, but we're going to really talk you down to $29 million a year so that we have that extra money to help you with more talent. And they would always, always veto something that would go against the players making money.
Am I crazy that I think it would be fine if we just went back to the old system where every non-playoff team gets a card, and then they just draw it from Hopper?
Probably not.
It's just, it sucks for those really bad teams that continue to be perennially bad. Like the Suns won 19 games and we got the 13th overall pick. It sucks. But build a winning team other ways, you know what I mean? The draft isn't the only way.
If you can combine these factors, a tournament that would I think would get pretty decent interest. Now it's not going to be NBA playoff interest if you're doing this losers bracket side for the number 1 pick, but it's sure as hell more interesting than the end of the regular season for those teams. So you combine that with some form of lottery improvement even beyond what we have now, or the salary cap thing where I mentioned again like leveraging space or something. Like take a bunch of factors. Like you said, how many wins do you get after playoff elimination? Make that a factor. Do a whole math equation for it. Like people get lost in some of these systems like college football did decades ago, but they also worked to some extent. You could argue about the parameters for it, but it gave you a clear ranking of teams with these given parameters based on who has this need, who's better, who's worse.
Yeah,
do something.
Experiment with it in the way of like the format too. Do a round robin. Or do a single elimination, like that's it, like the NCAA, It doesn't have to be a series format.
No.
And see what it is. I don't think they're ever going to get rid of this series format because it's such a revenue generator.
But best of 3.
Yeah. Or, a single elimination across the NBA. I don't know. Maybe there's a way to generate so much interest from that that it makes up for the revenue loss. I don't know. But it would be good to experiment with some of those questions and use this as the excuse. Because otherwise, there's zero revenue right now of these teams. They're out of the playoffs. They're done. Season's over.
Well, it feels good that someone it seems like Adam Silver is open to these things when David Stern seemed to be never open to these things. So it's nice to see that type of at least open-mindedness, even if nothing actually comes of it. And maybe he's just got a really good PR team and he never actually is open to it. But
I think he is. To give David Stern credit, which is, I hated the guy in a lot of ways, but when you had a league that was terrible, and really, I think part of the time when he was overseeing the NBA, it was a question of, are we going to be able to continue? Are we going to be able to weather this storm? So when you are able to build it back to respectability, I think you're probably less inclined to then experiment. Then Adam Silver now is we're competing with the NFL, sort of. We're very popular. In some markets, we're more popular. We can take some chances. We're there. We've done it.
Yeah. Did you hear the most recent plan to bring back the NBA that of course screws the Suns?
The Suns screwed themselves, but go ahead. Tell the listeners. Yes, I have.
Some of there's a talk, and it may not happen, of basically doing like a World Cup type of format where you have 4 groups of 5 teams basically 4 groups of 5 teams and a pool play type of thing. So you have 20 total teams, and you'll pick the top 2 teams from each group and advance them to an 8-team tournament to finish out the championship of this year. So that means you don't get all 30 teams, the wins that are out of the playoffs completely, so they don't have nothing to play for, that type of thing. But then 20 teams have something to play for. Well, the Suns have the 21st best record in the league.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
I wonder why you couldn't just do pool play for all of the teams, but I guess the World Cup doesn't do that. You have to qualify, and then you get the pool play, and then obviously most teams don't make it out of pool play, but no, that's a good point though. It sucks for the Suns for sure. Some of it wasn't entirely their fault with injuries and Well, I guess you could argue the suspension was his fault. But that's how it breaks sometimes.
It just made me laugh, basically, that the Suns are 21st. It just figures.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want any part of the Lakers anyways. They kicked our ass this year.
It'd be just nice to see the Suns play again before November or December.
And again, I do think, and now I still think it should come from the players, but all of a sudden, if you're the Suns team and you're not we're going to play the Lakers, but really we're not going to make the playoffs, kind of what's the point? You put them in a situation where if we win this game, we can actually advance in the playoffs. I think you're going to see a different side of them. It might not be enough. They might still get blown out, but I think you're going to see a passion that maybe wasn't there before.
Well, and that's what I'd be most disappointed in, because even if you just get to pool play and you win 1 out of your 4 games or whatever it is, at least this is basically the playoffs type of thing at this point. So it's this is a big deal. It's not lose and you go home, but it's still a big deal. It's this is the path to a championship in a very short condensed period of time. So it'd be fun to watch.
One of the other plans mentioned playing 5 to 6 regular season games to get to 70 or 72, depending. Different teams are at different points. I just thought that was funny because it's 5 or 6 games. Guess how many games back the Suns are from the 8 seed? 6.5. So that wouldn't do it either, at least on the surface.
I would think these would be the 5 bleakest games I've ever seen.
Well, and
maybe not. Maybe they'd be happy to come back and play it all, but
some would, some wouldn't. Damian Lillard's I'm not playing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He said today if he doesn't have any investment in it, if Portland doesn't have a shot at getting into the playoffs, then he'll come. He'll be with his teammates. He'll practice, but he won't play.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't know. Does that go against your win at all cost mentality?
Yeah, it sure does. I don't like that, but I get where it's coming from. It's not that I don't understand it. I just don't agree with it.
Yeah.
You be there for your team. You work on stuff together. It's not about just you, Dame. I know you're listening.
Until he injures himself so badly and he can never play again.
I guess, and that's a consideration. It's easy for me to be put it all on the line when every year, if they get hurt, they're leaving more money than I will ever see in my life. They are leaving on the table. Mm-hmm. I get that, but maybe that's why I respect Jordan so much. I mean, the whole thing back full circle is like, he had that same problem and he didn't give a shit. He's like, yeah, I could get hurt and never play again. That could happen. Didn't matter. I'm still going to play every game. They had to amend a clause. It was like, what was it, for the love of the game clause, because players weren't supposed to play in the offseason. He was like, fuck you. I love basketball. I'm going to play no matter what you do. I love that.
I want to see how this alternate universe turned out where Jordan did re-break his foot that year. Not that I wanted it to happen to him, but like I want to see the alternate dimension where that happened and just how the basketball landscape is today. If Jordan was never Jordan.
Does it even survive? Probably.
It
but
does. It's just different.
The Knicks win a title.
The Suns might. The Suns might have won one. Oh.
I don't know, because then maybe the Sixers play better and he never leaves. Yeah. It's interesting.
The Knicks got close so many times. You have to figure they win one of those.
Yeah.
Then again, they had the chance twice against Houston, and
yeah.
Whoops.
So I don't know. It's just interesting to think about that, but obviously we'll never know. That's why I want to see that alternate universe.
Wait, who did Houston beat? It was Orlando one year. Was it Knicks another year?
Yeah, Knicks in '94.
And then Knicks against San Antonio, they had another chance too, and they blew that then in the shortened season.
Yep.
And they kept losing to the Bulls in the first, I was gonna say trilogy, three-peat.
Yeah.
And I think once in the second three-peat too. Didn't they lose in the Eastern Conference semis in
'97? I think.
The middle year.
Yeah. They lost to the Bulls a lot. Like if you grew up hating Michael Jordan, if you lived in New York, you'd understand.
Yeah,
like,
they kept running into them, just like we did with the Spurs. Which is, I told Shaun this off air, but one of the things I'm super petty about is the Spurs are probably going to make the playoffs now. In almost all of these scenarios, unless they just go 16 or something. They're going to make the playoffs, because if they do the pool play idea, that's going to be considered the playoffs. If they do like 12-8, like Zach Lowe pitched today, because the Eastern teams are all eliminated, they don't care. Nobody wants like Charlotte in there. But there's 4 compelling teams in the West that are close to the 8 seed. They're in that group because they're 12th, but they're 3.5 back. I was really getting excited for them missing the playoffs out of complete bitterness.
Yeah.
And like everything else in the pandemic, that's been taken from me.
Well. So I don't know if Adam Silver would be on board with this, but I think it would get a lot of support. Maybe the NBA takes a page from our book, from our NBA post-apocalypse 2K streaming campaign, and if you lose, there's punishment. And now I'm thinking, we're talking about what were we electrocuting players and shit. No, we're not going to go that far. Maybe the team that loses lines up, and they walk, and each one gets punched in the dick. Just a firm love tap. Because what that does, Dave, is you want the lottery pick, and you want to position your team good. You don't want to get injured, but you don't want a dick punch.
I can't find a flaw in your logic.
And you see what I did? I segued to our NBA recording.
Mm-hmm. Which you should check out on our YouTube channel.
See, Chris was taking this around with it, but he's multitasking.
I got sidetracked by work, and I don't know what you said. Sometimes I can hide it better.
It's not worth really revisiting.
Punching the dick as a detriment, as a punishment for losing.
It was like a D+ joke. I mean, he didn't miss a lot, but
I can't find any flaw in his logic, really. And when I go through this, I'm trying to think, like, well, would the players' unit have a problem with that? Well, no, they want to win, so I get it.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Paul would be like, yeah, I mean, that's how I kind of operate anyways. So
yeah, Draymond Green's like, hell yeah.
I'm punching people in the dick already.
Yeah.
Would like OSHA have any issues with it, or like human rights campaigns? No, whatever. It's sports.
I mean, look, the players are making millions of dollars. They can't afford getting punched in the dick.
Yeah, exactly. No, I can't find any flaw in this logic.
But then we're gonna have like headline: Dikembe Mutombo can't have kids because of dick punching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need to do it so it's done by a machine. We can't have individual players doing it. It needs to be consistent amount of force. It's important.
True. But when here's the problem though: when the machine malfunctions and punches a hole in Isaiah Thomas,
or it punches him in the face because he's shorter, and it doesn't work out right.
Yeah, breaks his nose.
Are we going back in time? We mentioned 2 retired players.
I was thinking.
No, he means present day Isaiah Thomas. That's why I said he was short.
Yeah,
I thought he was retired now, but
Maybe.
We're not living in the 90s, Dave. No, he was on a team. He was playing for Washington for a while this season.
I don't follow the career of
After
Isaiah
Denver.
Thomas. He was a Sun for a blink of an eye, and
you mentioned Mutombo before then, who was definitely out of the league.
yeah, I mean, he seems like a guy who would have a problem not having kids.
Right. You think George Mikan wants to get punched in the dick?
Yeah.
Well.
So it's not bad. It's not. Just think about it.
Again, no flaws.
0 flaws. And that's why he's the Michael Jordan of podcasting.
Yep.
Thank you.
You win every time, baby.
I really brought it full circle. Again, it's Huge Squad shirt. I am Michael Jordan.
Except all the things you mentioned in the beginning
That's
of the show.
it. Period. End of sentence.
Shave your head.
Yep.
That's a good idea. Michael Jordan didn't really start winning until he shaved his head.
It's true.
Except for the championships in college and
Those
all
don't count.
all the playoffs and all the other than all of that, he didn't win until he shaved his head.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a curious end to this episode. In between shows, you can find us on ObjectionNetwork.com. I'm on the old background, I just noticed. It's just taking me this whole time, but there's the old social media stuff at the bottom, and
I was looking at it too. I was
I
like,
need to delete these.
I was like following the
Hold on.
patterns as I was talking.
Yeah.
Well,
there we go. We're back.
there you go.
Yeah. Just for the last 20 seconds.
YouTube right there, baby.
Yeah. Go to the YouTube. If you're on the podcast, you're like, what the fuck are they talking about? We'll see you next time.